and Andy, project architect from Bayley Ward, here, director from Bayley Ward. This project is one of those special projects that it's a privilege to work on. We've been doing it for 4 years. It takes special effort, and it sort of feels like everyone on the team put in special effort from the beginning, designing things right through to toolbox bolts outside about how to seal up past the house building. So yeah, it's been a bit of a privilege now. Split this, so we entered this in commercial. Next, kind of representing most of the sort of commercial design side of it later on. I thought today I'd focus on 2 parts, so embodied carbon in the construction phase, and then the ongoing sort of energy consumption and operational use. So, jumping into it, it's a very small site, 305 square meters. We crammed on 29 hotel rooms in the top 6 floors, and they're specifically for ANMF members. But in the heritage section at the bottom, it's basically a 3-story tenancy, which is leased, and into that's going a micro hotel, 8 micro hotel rooms, gastropub in the basement. We did set out the intention of doing sort of a fully integrated ESD approach. So from day one, there was a big team of consultants helping us, and the idea was to do this sort of best practice on a small inner urban site. The orientation is not brilliant for passive solar design. The primary views are south facing. So I'll quickly run through, I guess, a list of the different, all the different features, and I'll concentrate on the ones that were, I think, have the most impact. So we're targeting master standard. We haven't quite got it certified. We're on track. We're waiting on the commissioning of the energy recovery unit in the tenancy spaces, which is shit for me. Otherwise, Has been fine to say we're on track. So as part of that, we've got energy recovery ventilation. We've used a low embodied carbon sort of timber structure. We've got photovoltaics on the roof. We've got solar treating hot water. We've got rainwater collection. We use low flow water efficient features as limits our hot water use and our water consumption. We, throughout the project, driven primarily by the climate things, so the desire to use locally produced or locally manufactured materials and products. And then within the hotel itself, we've got to manage an energy management system which detects whether people are actually in the room, so the air doesn't run from what's there. And then on top of the building, roof space is a premium, but we've got a bit of a roof garden around the edge. We've got some planters where they plant and we're talking about doing beehives up there, so all this is going to be supported all the way through. And then in the construction phase, we had high levels of recycling in the construction waste, and then we've along the way done this best practice screens now. So a big team, as I mentioned, I won't bother going through them all. It's been great. Clients with projects like this, I'm having an amazing client. So the ANMF, there's 86,000 members in Victorian. They are about third in regional areas. Their headquarters is next door, and they do a lot of training, CPD training. So those regional members coming into town and somewhere to stay. So the idea of this hotel is that they have someone to stay when they're in town. I guess, cost-effective place to stay, great place to stay. And then, because it's an owner-operated client, they take a very long-term view on sustainability. So, the upfront capital costs can be for a period of time. And so, their membership base voted very strongly to go through this. So it's sort of a member-driven project. Architects, designers, we saw this project as the idea of caring for carers, so the unsung heroes, and this was before COVID. And then as COVID hit, it kind of became more real. So the site itself, It's on Victoria Street. It's at a junction between Queen Street coming up, Collins Street, Elizabeth Street's up on the right-hand side. The larger blue box is the ANMF headquarters, which was sort of involved in our early days. And we had issues on this project where we did not have space for a substation, so we are piggybacking off the power from that building. The reality was that we couldn't get enough power to do everything. And so we do have small amounts of natural gas for cooking and as a hot water boost, which ideally I would put in this building. We would have gone all electric, but we just couldn't get power to do it. There are other things that share. We've got waste streams, so the ANMF already had a biodigester making compost. So there's 3 waste streams in the hotel, and the composting goes across the road. Thank you. I will quickly talk about site. We're at this junction with the planning zones, and I'm going to talk this very quickly. We got an email yesterday from Melbourne City Council's town planners asking us to come and have a look at the building because they thought it was a good example of where planning policies, various planning policies, often repeated, could be resolved. So, as I mentioned, Victoria Street, south-facing, it looks over the market. Height is very much determined by the shadows onto the south side of the street. And you can sort of see where the Elizabeth Street height down to the market. So it's a heritage context. This on the top left is a Victorian image of the same building. Nowadays it's considered grade 3 contributory to the streetscape, and as we started the project we had every intention of reusing the structure. The reality was it was very poor quality concrete in the 1920s and couldn't be reused, so we reshuffled everything, so it's a bit of, really is just the facade that was left. And then to support that facade we do have concrete to the first 2 floors. We've got a concrete core that runs up to stabilise the timber structure. Then above that we've got timber structure and pre-clear facades. Now, I mentioned there'll be 2 parts to this. Time running out. The first part is the timber structure, and very simply, rather than creating a lot of carbon emissions, generating the structure, trees grow out of the store carbon.
Sorry,